Town. I don't know if it was one for the football purists in terms of performance, but we got the win in the end. Obviously, various talking points. So we'll start off with you, Max. I know you're quite passionate about the penalty incident. Watch back, and we had potentially five penalties all the way through. I'm not convinced all five were penalties. I definitely think there were two. There was the sort of flying handball just before half time, and then the free kick that we did actually get, which in my eyes was over the line. I know you've sort of analysed them in a little bit more detail. So talk us through those, Matt. All five of those. Do you think were all five or?
No. I mean, yeah. So apologies about the voice. But yeah, I was ill on Friday, so unfortunately couldn't get to the game. Running slightly now, but yeah. So I think I've obviously been a big discreditor of Jeremy Simpson for a number of years now, and it's because of consistent performances like last night he gives us. He's an absolutely atrocious referee, and but funnily enough, we've won every game he's refereed this season, so maybe I shouldn't complain about him too much. It's a funny little anomaly, is that. So for me, the penalties themselves, the first one was a push on Jordan Rhodes. It's a push. Is it enough for a penalty? Probably not. The second one was the pull on Harry Toffolo. Is there enough for a penalty? Probably not. The third one was a diving volleyball punch by the centre-back Greaves. It's a blatant penalty. Jeremy Simpson probably doesn't have the best angle. The linesman's probably obscured by Jordan Rhodes. It's one of those where VAR gives it. It's a stonewall penalty. The fourth one was Alfie Jones. The cross came into the box. He kind of takes it on the arm, and it's sort of like half. There's the new sleeve directive, isn't there? So if it hits below the sleeve, it's a handball. Now if it hits above, it's not. And he was kind of like 2/3 really below the sleeve, but I'm not quite sure, where they draw the line on these things. So that's a bit of a 50-50 one. And then the last one, Josh Karoma, was a complete piss take, if I'm honest, where Jeremy Simpson's 2 yards from it. He flicks the ball and, he's inside the box and he gives it outside the box. The guy's a complete Burke. And Whopper of the Week. But he is every time. But, I think that's enough for me about Jeremy Simpson. He didn't cost us the game, thankfully. We won the game. And for me, we should have had probably 2 penalties at least. We've put it to a poll as well. So earlier on Twitter pause. So there's a poll out there at the minute with people voting, and amazingly somebody's actually clicked we should have had 0 penalties, but I presume they're from Hull maybe on this occasion. But yeah, so there's a poll out there. Why don't we get everyone else's opinion first, and then I'll come to the results of that, if you like.
Yeah, no problem. Johnny? How many out of 5 are you giving it then?
So, 2.5. 2.5, I'd say. I'd explain. I'll probably have to go 2 more than 3 if you push me to actually answer. So for my 2 would be the first one, Greaves. It is Greaves, isn't it? It was, yeah, with the Jordan Rhodes. Obviously, other end from where we were, so impossible to see. It looked like he headed it, because that's what you expect him to do. But Jordan Rhodes' reaction says it all. I mean, he's Mr. Nice Guy, isn't he, in football? And if he goes screaming at the referee, I mean, the referee doesn't make decisions like this. But as soon as we saw Jordan Rhodes' reaction, first thing I thought, well, it must be a penalty, because he wouldn't. Of any player on the pitch, he's probably the best barometer whether it was or wasn't. But looking back, it's absolutely shocking. I don't know, like I say, Jeremy Simpson's view, but there's 4 people who should be watching that, who are paid to watch that, and should get that right. It's inexcusable. The 2 kind of pushes, or the push on Toffolo, again, tough one. I'd say the Rose one's probably slightly more likely, because it's a push in the back, but I think you might get that 3 times out of 10, maybe. So no real issues with that one. If it's just a look at the draw, we've probably had a bit more luck this season than not. The other potential handball, it's hard because the placement, I agree with Matt, it's where the rules are. Who knows nowadays with handball what is or what isn't. The thing for me is he does move his arm towards the ball to control it, and he gains an advantage from that. Now, the ref to see that in that detail is probably tough. Again, it brings up the debate of VAR, which I know we spoke about after the West Brom game. I think if you watch that in VAR and watch how he moves his arm towards the ball, and that is what controls it, it might be given because of that. And then the Chroma one, I think if you watch, I've listened to the Radio Leeds commentary, I've listened to the EFL iFollow commentary back on YouTube and the Sky Sports commentary, and had a Leeds fan and the Leeds fan text me 30 seconds after it happened, and they all say pen. In the commentary, they say penalty. All three of them, Radio Leeds, iFollow, and Sky Sports say penalty. And then they all kind of get confused and mumble back and realise that it's a free kick and kind of confused as to why. It's absolutely blatant. The guy who fouls him, the man who fouls him doesn't actually leave the penalty area from start to finish throughout the entire incident. So from a refereeing point of view perspective, what you're looking for, again, is it an easy decision? Something we've discussed in the past, is it an easy decision? It must be. Because you watch the player who's fouling him, he doesn't leave the area. So how can he possibly have fouled him outside the area?
Do you know what the best thing about it, Johnny, is?
Yeah. Do
you know what the best thing is? Okay, where they sit. So I know Stephen Chicken a bit and speak to him, and he's telling me that where they sit, you know, in terms of at Hull, is like way up at the back, and everyone at the back can see that's a penalty, but the idiot stood 3 yards away can't see it's a penalty. You know, the guy's just not fit to be in the Football League. It's just I said my piece.
Yeah, I don't know the linesman's view. You can't quite see him on the video, but he should be able to see the lines. The fourth should be able to. That's an easy decision. It's absolutely shocking. But one thing does surprise me, and I've watched it, and I said this again live, and I watched it back, but I know Cromer gets cramp and Campbell kind of treats him, but none of the players seem to really complain. I don't know if anyone watches that, which again is quite strange because it's a penalty, and at that, it's a massive thing. You think there'll be uproar, similar like there was with Rhodes, and O'Brien was fuming. So that's the only thing I found was a bit strange, that there didn't seem to be the kind of disagreement and uproar from the players, which, I mean, it clearly was, but maybe they couldn't see it as well.
Yeah, I must admit, when I first saw it live, I sort of leapt off at the sofa, scared everyone in the vicinity because I thought we'd got a penalty, you know. And then it took a while really to kind of figure out what had actually gone on when you were watching, didn't it? And as you say, Johnny, the player didn't even leave the area, and on the line is in. So we were quite baffled because the ball were literally, when they put the thing down to set the free kick, it were literally as close as you can get without being a penalty. And certainly after missing how football goes, certainly after missing that handball in the first half, you think law of averages, you're going to get that benefit of the doubt and get the penalty there. You know, sometimes refs make it right, don't they, for want of a better phrase. So I must admit, I were pretty baffled at that point myself. So just moving on from the penalty incidents, obviously the ref got the sendings off perfectly right, in my opinion. Both yellows. If that had been a Town player that got a red for those two incidents, I'd have been fuming, especially the second one. There's absolutely no need. I think at first glance that's one that probably doesn't look not a penalty, sorry, like a booking, but when you watch it back, it just sort of clips the heel, doesn't it? So I think we probably all agree that that was a second bookable and a bit of a silly challenge really, but went down to 10 men and it went in our favour in the end because Town historically against 10 men seemed to struggle, but I think we came out second half a little bit with a different mindset. We got at Hull. We were quite proactive in moving forward, created quite a few chances, certainly in sort of first 10-15 minutes of that second half. Slightly died down after that. I think Hull probably reorganised things a little bit and set up to sort of keep us out. And we almost ground out the victory in the end. We kept plugging at it. We kept going. Some positive changes from Carlos in regards to personnel. Nice to see Fraser Campbell come on. Seemingly the forgotten man at the moment. But Carlos has explained previously that only having one striker on pitch, you only need one striker on bench, and that tends to be Rhodes. So Campbell came on and took his chance, and he did all right. To be fair, he does what Fraser Campbell does. Gets himself around and won a great ball. But the fact we had two penalties totally missed. I think we can say we got the rub of the green on that one, and then a little bit of a scare right at the very end with the header. But apart from that, really, we looked pretty comfortable, Matt. I don't know how you felt about that second half.
I'll be honest, it was a bit of a poor game, really. I thought throughout the game, we looked a little bit nervous. With the response to the two defeats that we've had was always going to be really key. So I think there was a little bit of jitteriness, a little bit of nerves in the way that we played. But I think we kind of went back to almost back to basics, to coin, a bit of a cliche, if you like, where we thought, you know what, we're going to go there, we're going to be solid and we're going to nick something. And I think that was always the intention. And I think that the intention as well was to try and grow into the game. The sending off was, a pretty blatant sending off. The two fouls were quite ridiculous, really, from Tom Eaves. He's probably let Hull City down a fair bit there, I think, especially with the second one, because you're on a yellow card and then to sort of aim a kick at Lewis O'Brien from behind is just really, really silly. I'd have been frothing, if he'd have been, playing for us. But, thankfully he did. And then I thought second half we just took over, really, but without doing anything special. I thought Sorba Thomas had a good game. I know Sorba sometimes, and Jerry's back now. He's moving. That's great. Hey, there we go. And I know Sorba Thomas gets maligned quite a lot for because he set really high standards. But I thought his energy in the second half was really key to sort of us turning the game around as well. I thought Sorba had a really good game down the right hand side, and he put a lot of balls in the box. And Jordan Rhodes was, Jordan can't really lead the line by himself, like Danny Ward can, but Jordan, battled manfully. And Fraser Campbell came on. Look how knackered was Fraser Campbell at the end. It was hilarious. It was bent over the double. The guy ran himself into the ground, and it was great to see him celebrating as well. And it wasn't a perfect performance by any stretch, but we did what we had to do, and that was respond and win. And it didn't really matter how we won, as long as we did win. And no one at the end of the season is going to go, do you remember that game against Hull? Shall we watch that 90 minutes back? No one's going to care. It's one of those things where now we just got to go, you know what? Fantastic. We're back on the horse. I'm trying to think of American puns, if you like, because Jerry's back here. We're back. We're back in the room, if you like, and that was really important to win this game. And some of the results went quite well over the weekend. So we're up in third. Another 9 points should hopefully do it, and we've given ourselves a really good chance. And this game was pivotal. Really pivotal for the whole season. So Tom Lees, I thought, was outstanding at the back. I'll be honest. When I picked my little mock team, because we had the fan hub thing, when I picked a team, I had Pearson and Colwill to start because I just thought Tom Lees looked a little bit leggy, pre the international break. But he was phenomenal. He was fantastic. He even overlapped. I can overlap in centre half, didn't he? At one point down the right hand side and put a good ball into the box. For me, I thought Tom Lees was great. And if Harry Toffler hadn't have scored, he'd have been taking the man of the match award, I think. But it's a real credit to them. They've really come. They've battled back from tough couple of games, physically and mentally took a bit of a jolt, and they've stayed strong and come back. So really pleased for the team and the players themselves, and with things going against us on the field, I think with some of the penalty decisions. I know in general play, Jeremy Simpson didn't do a lot wrong. It was just the penalty decisions. Heads can drop, but they didn't, and it showed what a tough group of players they are and what a decent together, a decent togetherness they have. And even missing Danny Ward could also have caused a couple of them, a couple of shoulders to slump, but they didn't, and Danny Ward's a huge miss, but, Jordan came in, did what Jordan Rhodes does, and, we've come out of the game 1-0, so I think we can all be really happy with it. Just, it's just not one to watch back at the end of the season.
Yeah, I think you're dead right there, Matt. I think result was the most important thing on Friday night for me, and certainly, anyway, I'm a big believer that if you're winning football matches as a fan, generally you're quite happy. It might not be great to watch, but if you come out of the ground and you've won, you can generally think, do you know what, we weren't great. I think moving forward towards the end of the season, Jerry, I think that's probably going to be a bit of a thing now. I don't think performances we can read too much into how we actually play the style of football. It's all about getting points on the board, isn't it, at this point?
Thank you, Matt. Frozen again.
Okay. Johnny, I'll redirect that one to you.
Yeah, well,
you'll do.
You're absolutely right. I mean, it's cliche, it's a business end, but it's all about getting the points on the board. Do you know what I mean? And I think it wasn't like a quick, free-flowing football. It wasn't like the best football with this season, but I think you hit the nail on the head where you said we kind of came out just not. I think we knew that over the 90 minutes we'd get chances to score goals against Hull. We probably had chances to score more goals against Hull if we had the decisions going our way. And we did have. The home there, I think almost hits it too sweet. I think if he slices it slightly, it goes flying past keeper. It's a great save. That was a great chance to score. Turton just before half time again. no fault attributed to him, but he's got a great chance that he don't quite get on target. So we create a good opportunity to score goals. It's a bit like the Derby game. When you go a man down, the expectation changes, the pressure changes. If you don't score early, and the longer it goes on, you start to make it look a bit. When you come out and win, it's like, oh yeah, but we made it hard work of it. I think to a certain extent we did, but if those couple of chances go in and we get a penalty, it's a very different game. We could come out of that 2-3, but ultimately it doesn't matter. It's 3 points, and I think a good thing from being in the ground was the fans reinforced it all the way through. There was no negativity. There was no starting to groan, complain, getting any other players' backs. I know it's slightly different being home versus away, but I don't know if that had been, flip it around, if that had been at home, you might have felt that a little bit, whereas there was none of it. It was 100% support. Campbell came on, everyone's singing his name. He's not kicked a ball for months, but he comes on and straight away the fans' encouragement, singing about him. It was. That's why the players celebrated and were part of the amazing moments at the end when Toffolo scores in the game, because they recognised that, and I think the fans really helped Town, especially when after half time when they came out all guns blazing. The fan, it was a roar. It was a fantastic place to be, and I think that made a difference. And I think it's good that the fans see that and understand that, and now it's just about getting points. Doesn't matter how we play, doesn't matter how we score. It's the points, and that's what we need. And yeah, it was 1-0. It wasn't fantastic football, but with a ball a couple of inches of the way and a referee who understands football, it would have been different. It could have been 2 or 3, and then it's a different conversation, isn't it? So yeah, I think you've got to just take it as it is, move on to the next game, and hopefully get 3 points as well. If we play like that for the rest of the season, but win 1-0, I'll take it, and I'm sure 99.9% of the Town fans will do as well.
100%, mate. I think it's well, first and foremost, it's really nice to have someone on the pod who actually goes to a match every now and again. So that's always a bonus. But it's interesting what you say there, because I was obviously watching it on TV and sort of reading Twitter as well, and it seemed a totally different vibe. And I don't know if that is just because it's easy to sort of be like that when you're not at the match on social media. But the noise that were coming from the fans were fantastic. So it's great even to say that there were no grumblings whatsoever in stadium, because obviously that can feed into the players and how they play. Obviously sort of being involved in South Stand and stuff like that. We're looking at that positive atmosphere for as long as we go. And I think it's a really important point there what you say, Johnny, that from now till end of the season, as fans, let's just put the way that we performed at the back of his mind. And if we win 3 matches to get us 9 points by playing poorly but scoring 1-0 and scrapping and stuff like that, then I think at end of the season most fans will take that. So I think that's a really good thing for the players to take out of it as well. Sometimes you can get more out of a scrappy 1-0 than you can with a really good fluent 5-0. I know it sounds really weird to say that, but when everyone's battled hard and done the jobs well, and you come away with a victory like that for a morale boost, that is that's fantastic. So
quick, go to Jerry while his connection's good.
I was going to just say,
working? We do have internet in America, I promise. That is a thing that exists. My apologies, you guys, so much. So Hull thoughts. Quick. It was great. I thought, honestly, and I think, it feels like a lot of fans are giving credit for it. We were against, 10 men there in the second half, but they're 10 men who are playing for a point at home. We knew as soon as their goalkeeper started pulling the Lee Nichols maneuvers out with the, bringing the physios on, even though we knew he wasn't ever getting subbed off and delaying, a goal kick here and there. It's like, oh, well, clearly they're not really trying for a win. And even if they've got 10 men, if they're at home playing for a point, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. So I thought, Town finished the game with 8 or 9 shots on target. Eventually they got the goal. I thought the performance was actually pretty doggone good, especially considering no Ward, no Hogg. Going against a team, especially that was kind of bunkering down there in the second half, I thought Town did pretty well. Obviously, I had the great chance with Holmes there in the first half as well. I don't think, other than that late chance that they gave up to Hull, which I'd honestly, when that header went wide, and I'm speaking to you from, my ghost office here, other than that, I thought the performance was actually pretty good.
Yeah, I think, like you say, overall maybe fans were being a little bit too harsh. We got the result and we put those 3 points on the board and moved forward. Just reading some comments from Twitter, I know Matt's got some fancy new little add-in where it's flashing up on screen there for those.
I'm absolutely loving it as well. I'm absolutely loving playing with that.
I know. But for those who are listening after the event, we've got very similar comments from online. Max has said, I thought we were poor in the first half. I think Carl's got the team wrong, suggesting Pippa and Campbell should have started in that kind of game, in his opinion. But we got the job done, and that's all that matters. Terrier 7-2, the regular listener. Players look like they were on the edge first half. We play like that versus Luton, he fears that we'll have a heavy loss. I think we desperately need a creative midfielder, which just on that point there, Carolighton guys is come back and he's not really featured as much as maybe I thought he probably would. Do you think that's due to maybe Johnny Russell's sort of form? Matt, you grabbed your microphone pretty sharpish there. Have you got something that you want to add in there about Mr. Iting?
Yeah, he's been injured, hasn't he? Carol Iting got an injury. I'm just trying to work out if Jerry's frozen again. But yeah, he got. I think he has. He got an injury, didn't he? Carol Iting. He came in with a lot of fanfare, didn't he? But John Russell quite rightfully took that slot at first, and he had a really good start. Did John Russell when he came through in sort of January? So he deserved to keep that place. Deserved to keep the place at the time. 100%. I think the last 3 games, I think John Russell has had a dip. This happens with every young player, though. So it's not a criticism. Sometimes I think the strength of a coach is knowing when to dip young players in and out. And I think maybe it's come to a point where John Russell maybe needs to be dipped out for 1 or 2 games before coming back in. And it's not a criticism. It's just this just generally happens, doesn't it? You get peaks and troughs with young players. And I think the last 3 games, John Russell's probably not been quite as good. And I think some of that is, people have worked out, his lack of mobility and, to sort of put, men behind him. And he's also, been switched from 6-8, quite consistently. And, he's having Hogg as a partner, then O'Brien, so there's not a lot of consistency there. So there are mitigating factors behind it. But I think Carol Iting will probably be champing at the bit a little bit, to get his feet under the table. And I'm a little bit disappointed that he's not really played or been given the opportunity to play as much yet as what he has. But hopefully now is the time where, we can let him off the leash, if you like, and and he can come in. But I think now's probably the right time to put Iting in there. But John Russell does also bring that physical aspect as well. We saw how important he is in the air. Even though people sort of run beyond him, it's not actually that easy to get past him in the first place because he's absolutely huge. It's like climbing a mountain, isn't it? So there are a lot of reasons to keep him in there. But I think in terms of freshness and for his benefit, in terms of his development, I would probably swap them out for a little bit. But John Russell can come straight back in and come back in well at some point, no doubt. But I do think it's the right time to maybe put Iting in.
I must admit, I thought I might have seen Iting come on at half time. I think not if he was going to kind of put a criticism towards that first half, I think the middle of the park, we didn't really hold the ball very well. The ball kind of came in and went out very quickly. We lost possession and we didn't turn and find a Town player. And obviously with the man down, I thought Iting might have been the player to just have kind of found that forward pass, kind of just link stuff. Obviously he went a different way, which worked, and Jimmy, you can see why he did what he did, and that was absolutely fine. But I did think maybe Iting might have come in and done something in that game. And I agree with you, Matt. I think Joey Russell deserved his starts, his time on the pitch, and I think he's a cracking player, something different that we don't have in other players. I think his ability to find a forward pass when he's given a bit more space is there ahead of other players. Certainly, they play in midfield or kind of take place. But I think Iting might have been able to do something for Hull, and I think I agree with you. I might just move Russell out for a game, just to give him a bit of options, something a bit different. But I think he's done really well. I'm excited to kind of see him play. But I do think, I don't know, there's quite a few times that Hull were quite quick to get, like you say, 2 or 3 men behind him. And a little bit his own fault, but a little bit, there weren't the options, wasn't the movement. I think he just got a little bit found out. And I think a player who's got a bit more experience might have kind of been able to turn that whole game a little bit more. And that's not down to Russell, who's played the amount of games he's played. You can't ask him to have experience. And him, it's like all players of his age, they're going to get that way. Like you say, they go up, they go down, and then they get the experience, and the talent will come through with the experience, and they'll go on and keep going up and up and up. But yeah, I think with the Luton game, I'd probably like to see maybe a bit of a switch, but we shall see.
Yeah, I was just going to say then the sort of debate about changing players over kind of leads nicely into sort of the next sort of section of the pod. Really looking forward to the next 3 games. Monday, so we're behind schedule a little bit, but we've got Luton, QPR, and Borough coming up. Which, a few weeks ago you looked at, those 3, and they were, looking like 3 season-defining games really, and probably still are. Luton on Monday, they're currently 4th in the form table, 1-3 and drawn 2. QPR have sort of had a little bad run. They've dropped down to 9th. I think they're bottom of as it stands. I think they've lost 5 out of their last 6, so they'll be certainly looking to get back to winning ways. And with what Town are like, we're generally ones to upset the form books. And then Middlesbrough sitting in 5th currently on the Easter Monday. They're currently 5th in the form table. Town currently sit 3rd though, so to say how, in inverted commas, poor we've been of late, we're still 3rd. We're 3rd in the Championship table. I'm looking at the wrong table there. Sorry. No, it's hard, isn't it, Matt, to have all these screens open at the same go? Normally, I just sit.
Thank you.
So I feel your pain now, mate. I understand what it's. Moving into those 3 games, Jerry, if you're still with us, you look like you are. What are your expectations?
No, he's not. I think he's
not.
He's just keeping still. No, he's not.
No, he's not with us.
We have a really good mime artist over in the next one again.
Do you want me to take on the Jerry mantle again?
You can again, Johnny. You can.
I won't do an American accent,
but
I'll stand up for the Jays.
One away. What's sort of your expectations, or what's your hopes for those 3 games?
I think, yeah, it's a tough one because it annoys me that we don't play on the Saturday. I think, obviously, Luton and QPR both play midweek. Luton play Peterborough, if I'm wrong. I don't think I might have got the 2 mixed, but I think Luton play Peterborough, so they've got a midweek game, whereas we don't. But then they get a bit more recovery because we play on the Monday. It's hard. I'm just more thinking how many points do we need? Do we need 3 more wins out of that? Do we target the bad form? It's a tough one. Luton are in there and up. So I'd probably rather beat QPR, keep them down, rather beat a Borough and probably lose to a Luton, because I think they're more likely to finish in the playoffs and teams around. So it gets a bit technical at this stage. It's not just who you're playing. Normally you'd always rather win. We think, well, where are they? If I'd rather beat a team that's 7th, 8th, push them down, and lose to a team that's kind of in with us. So I'm kind of looking at it from that angle. But equally, it's a dangerous game to play at the time, because if it goes wrong in that game and you throw another game akin to Bournemouth, you can see it doesn't really work, does it? But I don't know. I'd like to get something from QPR. I think, yeah, it's a tough one. But then,
I think because of games, as you sort of said, Johnny, they don't become must not lose games, which is kind of a negative way of saying it. But it's a way that if you go out and don't lose any ground on any of these teams, bearing in mind we're in front of them all, if you actually lose any ground and there's a game less to play, you've kind of got to come out and think it's a positive result.
No, I agree.
After these 3, it's Bristol, Coventry away, and Bristol stay at home.
There are a couple of games after that. If you think we need 3 wins, and you potentially still is a game, Barnsley potentially is the game. 3 draws, as much as it sounds kind of like not fantastic right now, because we know what we need. Whereas if it was, do you know what I mean, December, November, you don't know. It's not necessarily a negative outcome. I think the Luton game is probably an easier one to target, because you think you've got a rest and they played midweek, and the QPR game's a quick turnaround. Things like QPR are in awful form, so potentially that's a game we could win. So it's tough. I think if you offer me 3 draws now, it puts a bit more pressure on the Barnes in the Bristol game, but it wouldn't necessarily be a bad outcome. A win and 2 draws, I think wherever they come, would be a good outcome. but Huddersfield have got it in to win all three. They've definitely Huddersfield to play how they play to their strengths, and keep keep what they've been doing over the last kind of 18, 19 games and apply it in those 3 games. They've got the ability to win all 3. But I don't know. We've been here too many times. We're too long and too Huddersfield Town fans to kind of think that will be happening. So if you offer me 3 draws, I'd probably take it. But yeah, it's an interesting one. It's that time of season where it becomes a slightly bit different, a little bit more tactical, and what games matter and what don't.
Matt, just moving over to you. Do you think the obviously Johnny's just touched on it there, not playing on the Saturdays, kickoff times are all there due to Sky, which we'll sort of move on to after we've had this sort of little bit of conversation. Do you think that plays into the player's mind or Carlos's mind in sort of thinking, let's see how everybody else does before? Do you think he'll have his plan and stick with it? Or if, for example, we kick off, I think we play later on Friday than everybody else, if the results have either gone our way or not gone our way, do you think that'll alter the approach? Or do you think it adds any different dynamics to the way that Town will approach these 3 games, depending on whether we're before or after everybody else?
I don't think so. I think we've got a reasonable cushion. I think Luton, obviously we play Luton in their 4th, don't we, next? So I think Luton have another game in between, don't they? But I don't actually see, because we won't lose a place technically if we beat Luton. I don't think that really will alter the way that we'll approach the game. I think we'll keep it very, very similar to how we are doing. We'll keep things quite tight and look to counter. Even at home. So I don't really see any change at this stage. I think, maybe a little bit further on down the line we may see that, but I think where we are at the minute, people are chasing us. All we need to do is keep our noses in front, and I think that's what Carlos will be setting out to do.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it, with the TV and stuff like that? Because as a player, do you think it plays into their minds that they're on telly, or do you think that they can block all that out? And sometimes when you're on TV, there's different pressures because obviously there's a lot more people maybe potentially watching. And is the players out there that look to maybe showcase the talent a little bit differently to how they would do, in a normal game? And does it affect their game coming into this stage of the season? You could all of a sudden become a hero, couldn't you, by maybe trying something that you might not normally. I was a little bit strange. We should be accustomed to them now at Town. They seem to be on every bloody week. I don't know. Viewing figures through Sky must be really good for Town because we keep getting picked. I know we've got some big games coming up, but at the moment it is it seems to be every single week, doesn't it? I think Hounds is on as well. Is that right? So
I guess you are right there. The fact that we are on all the time, and it does change things. If you play Saturday 3:00, 6-7 games on the bounce, and suddenly you're playing Friday, Monday, Sunday lunchtime, it does change your routine. Do you know what I mean? Football's very routine, it's very monotonous, everything's the same. And suddenly you have one game that shifts. It might be a disadvantage. You could argue it is obviously the same for both teams. Barnsley, it's a weird kick-off, it's the same for both teams. But if we're a bit more used to that, and we've had it all over the place for the last 5-6 games we played, it could potentially. I know if they play, we've got a short recovery time. Carlos and his fitness staff might disagree completely on that side, which is fair enough. But becoming used, Town are probably doing that. Whereas if we're just playing the one team that's coming on Sky and they've not been on Sky for a couple of months, it might potentially play into our slight advantage that way, or it might be completely irrelevant and they're not bothered and makes a difference to them. It's really quite hard, but I naturally don't like being on TV just because historically we seem to have done all right recently, but I don't know why. I've always got a thing in mind that we always seem to lose on Sky TV. But maybe that's not true, but it's just a bit of a gut feeling. Every time a game gets changed, I'm not necessarily a fan of it.
No, I think the constant chopping and changing, obviously you talked about players there, Johnny, but as fans as well, it's not something that I particularly enjoy or like. Friday at Hull, for example, if that's on a Saturday, I can quite easily get there. Me and my 2 lads would have quite happily gone across to Hull on a Saturday, but moving it to a Friday night makes it difficult to get across M62 without finishing work early. And one of my little boys is only 7, so it's a late night for him as well. Similar, looking at other games that have been moved. The Luton one's not too bad because he's off school, so I've got to deal with him that if we play on a non-school night at night, he can go, and he just has to not be grumpy the following day. But I think, Matt, you've made comment on that as well, and obviously you've got a little one as well, and these games being moved from Saturdays to Fridays, it can have a big knock-on effect to fans, can't it? And I think the short notice, you sort of think of travelling fans with train tickets being booked. Obviously, with going up to Middlesbrough, a lot of fans will have booked train tickets and made plans around the scheduled kick-off time. And there's a lot of positives with regards to the money that you get through Sky. I sometimes feel a little bit hypocritical because I talk about not liking Sky and the changes and stuff like that, but without them and the money that comes from Sky, a team like Huddersfield Town is even less likely to be able to challenge due to sort of natural income streams. So I suppose with what they give with one hand and take with the other, but it is a little bit of a shame in it that these games have been moved around and travelling fans, both the town and our opposition that have having to come to us, kind of been messed around, and the short notice doesn't help anybody really, does it?
No, I got a bit frustrated because everybody's circumstances are different, and some people think it's great. Huddersfield Town being moved for Sky, and it's good. The exposure's good, the money's good. I think we get about £500,000 for the the recent for this recent cluster. It's all that's really good. Michael Heffler on Sky, absolutely brilliant. There are good things to it, but for me and you personally, I've got now a 4-year-old kid. He can't go to he can't go to games unless they're Saturday afternoon. He has football Saturday morning. It's not the club or Sky's fault. It's a choice. But Friday nights, Monday nights, he can't go to that. He'll be asleep by, or he should be asleep by sort of like 8:30, 9 o'clock. So you can't. It's not really good for family. That was my point really on Twitter. It's not great for families. We saw Blackpool versus Nottingham Forest was the Saturday midday kickoff. There are other championship games which have been selected for midday kickoffs, and Huddersfield always seem to get the graveyard shift. And my point was over fairness really, in that if we're given more lunchtime kickoffs on a Saturday, then fair enough. They're family friendly. My little boy goes to football, so he'll have to miss it, but at least he's got a choice there. Whereas Friday night, Monday night, it's really sort of anti-family, if you like, so it's very frustrating from my point of view, because that's sort of 5-6 games this calendar year that he can't go to, when you've kind of paid, I know it's not a lot of money, is it, £50 for an under 11 season card, but you pay the money and expect to be able to take him to the games, and they get changed for Sky, and it's really frustrating. But there are good things to it, but there are also negative points to it as well. I would prefer that Sky gave a lot more notice in these things, but again, they can't do that because the table's forever changing. The variables are constantly changing, and Sky have to try and leave it as late as possible to pick the right games, because they're the ones that people are going to tune in and watch. So I do understand it. It's just as a family, we have a right to whinge about it, as well as also see the benefits. So it's just one of those things. With regards to the 3 games coming up, the whole game's taken so much pressure off of us, but we're going to be in a really different position potentially come that Monday night. We could be in a great position, or we could be in a precarious one. So it's exciting, and that's probably why Sky have picked it. So it's you just have to take it, I guess. It comes with the success, doesn't it?
Yeah, I suppose,
it's an interesting point you made. You kind of just have to take it. I think for football for the last 10 years, taking it, but I think there's a real sounds a bit political, but I can't think of a better word. But there's a real movement from fans across all championship clubs at the moment that there's a lot of anti-Sky, do you know what I mean? Songs, anti-Sky things on Twitter, and I think it might come. Do you mean football's run by money? The money comes from Sky, so that's the full stop, isn't it? To a certain extent. But I think there's quite a bit of people pushing back from the fan base across all clubs that they don't want this. I know Kieran Maguire on Prize Football has a real bee in his bonnet about it in regards to train fares. Like you say, if you put the cost of it, Friday night train fare is like a hell of a lot more expensive than a Saturday one. So it's a cost to fans, and it's also like say you've bought a season ticket. I live, do you know what I mean, an hour and over an hour away from the ground, and it makes a big difference to me if I'm going to M62, do you know what I mean, on a Friday night or a Monday night. It's whether I go or not. Well, I've paid for it. Do you know what I mean? We're all Yorkshiremen. Most of us are Yorkshiremen. Apologies to Jerry who's not. But with
Adopted.
end of the day, I've paid for something that I've bought in good faith. I know there'll be small print, etc., but it's changed, and through no fault of my own. And I don't expect the club to offer a refund, but it's just an expectation that the fans will put up across all football clubs will put up and shut up and deal with it and move on. And any other business that looked to do that, if you prepaid for anything or booked anything, an event, and they rung up and changed it and said, well, we'll change the time by doing 12 hours, 24 hours, a different day. Oh, but if it'd be uproar. But in football, it's expected to be fine. And I know there's a few caveats that go with that, and I don't have an alternative to it. But it does seem to be that it's starting to not just be accepted. And I think a few fans are starting to, across all football clubs, kind of voice that. And what Sky look to do with that, if anything, I don't know. But it's not really a fair expectation that people have bought tickets in good faith and can't go and support the football clubs. And really, that's what it's all about, isn't it? And Saturday, 3:00, I know is a bit of a holy grail time. I don't mind it being moved as much as long as it's over a weekend. But when you're stopping from fans from going and support their club, it is an issue. And I think if fans start to voice it a bit more, it becomes a bit more at the forefront of doing clubs' minds, the league's minds. Whether it will change or not, I don't know. But it's good. It's good to see something being said about it, and it's not just being taken as we've got no choice. Because ultimately, when the fans do run football, you've seen fan power across various examples over the last 2 seasons. I think it's good that it's not just being taken as well. We don't have a say. Do you know, it's our club. It's not Sky's club, and if fans can't go, it's not good.
Yeah, I think probably the benefit of being on Sky for these home games is the club have made it £10 in. So although maybe can't make it or family members can't make it, if they're putting that money to good use and discounting tickets, I suppose, from the club's point of view, they can't really do much more than that to sort of attract fans.
No.
It's really interesting one, isn't it, Johnny? Because I know in Europe and stuff like that, when I think it was Germany, when games got moved to TV to Monday nights, they sort of protested on it, quite a lot. There were disruption to games. I think they had the tennis balls flying on or something like that, and I think eventually they managed to push back and stop that happening. So with fan power, as you say, it's quite a thing. But I'm just always a bit wary in England that you don't have enough people with that mentality to make a massive impact. But moving forward, as you say, there is a little bit more displeasure now being vocalised. So if that is something that takes off in the future, then fair play. I think fans have been treated, as just basically cash cows. As you say, if that happened in any other industry, you if you didn't get your refund, you probably not go again. But in football, you kind of obviously you're loyal to your club and you're going to stick with them pretty much regardless. So you kind of do have to just suck it up and get on with it. And is it right? Probably not. But it's what it is. It is one of those things. But yeah, with the club making the tickets £10 for that QPR and Luton game. Obviously, we need to get as many fans down there as possible, and I think just maybe reiterating what you said, Johnny, about the atmosphere within the stadium for those games. If it is not going quite right, nerves, as we all will say, it's typical Town for this to happen. We're starting third with only a few games left, and we'll end up dropping out of the playoffs. But for me, the fans have a massive part to play in this, and these next 2 home games especially. We need to get as many people down to that stadium as we can, and and stick with it, because it will be nervy. There'll be a lot of twists and turns. The last thing that we need as a fan base is to let those nerves from us seep onto the grass and into the players, because if they get nervy, that's when mistakes start happening and stuff like that. And let's take a step back sometimes as well as fans. We've had an absolutely incredible season. If you would have said to me that we'd be sat third at this stage of the season, only needing potentially a couple more wins to make the playoffs, I'd have laughed at you. So these games are massive, and it's a massive opportunity for us to get some points on board and get back into the Premier League. So, or certainly to get into the playoffs and have a shot at getting back into the Premier League. So if anybody is listening and they've not got a ticket, get one bought and get down there and get behind the boys and make a real positive atmosphere, because I'm sure I know that the players really appreciate it when we're there, when we're making a noise and stuff like that. So get yourselves down and back the lads all the way, and I'm sure everybody on here would agree with that. Cool. With that kind of boxed off, then we'll sort of just move on to season cards quickly. I know we've sort of not got abundance of time left, but we'll just have a quick chat about the season cards. So their prices have come out. They've looked at the price promise and have kept that, and also a price freeze, which I think is an incredible offer from the club. Obviously, with cost of living in pretty much every other area going up. We're kind of a little bit wary of what would happen with season tickets across football, and Town seems to have followed suit from a number of other clubs which I've seen and kept season ticket prices the same, which I think is really admirable of Town and those others, obviously. But yeah, $2.99 for an adult season ticket. I think it works out at £13 a game roughly if we stay in Championship, which you'd pay that to watch Championship football, wouldn't you? So I think that's fantastic. I'm sure you guys will agree on that. I don't think anybody's too annoyed with that or anything to say sort of against that, Johnny and Matt.
It's what
I think
expected, really.
I think it's fair. Yeah, I think it's fair. I think the good thing is against other clubs, which I guess it doesn't matter what other clubs are doing, but it's useful to kind of see how we compare. That is towards the lower end. And you've got clubs, I'd say, similar to Huddersfield to some extent, and similar geographically in size. Barnsley, for example, is up at kind of like £400. Reading's not too similar. Bournemouth right at the other end, almost close to £550. So just to kind of put that in perspective against a Championship, it's really reasonably priced. So I don't think, even if it gone up a little bit, it would have been well priced against competition. So I think it's very fair pricing, as it has been for quite a few years now, Huddersfield. So I think that's one thing that the club's consistently done really, really well.
Yeah, I always think sometimes with the cheap prices, continually cheap, it almost gets to a point where fans almost, like we've sort of maybe mentioned here, that I know you, Matt, said it's kind of what you expected. You kind of expect it to continue to be cheap, and if there's a sudden jump, there's all of a sudden outrage, even if that jump is still in line or even below other clubs in our division. So I think for the club to stick at $2.99 is a good move.
Yeah, 100%.
Obviously, the deadline is just before end of season to sign up.
6th of May, is it? I think they've got till 6th of May, and those who kept their season cards when during lockdown to get it for $2.49 as well, don't they? Which is really good. I think the only sort of slight issue, I've seen some negativity online, which really baffled me. Really, to be honest, people saying it was too much. Which everybody's circumstances are different, aren't they? I won't ever criticize anybody for saying they can't afford to pay that, because that's completely fine. Everybody's completely different, and I understand that. But I don't think I can accept somebody saying £250 not a good value for Championship football for 23 games, because that's nonsense as far as I'm concerned. I think it's fantastic. I think the club have done really well. They've priced it really well. I understand £300 not 250, and there is a bit of a slight jump there. But for me, I think they're really good value. The only thing that slightly, I wouldn't say worries me, but I do think with Town constantly not constantly, but putting games at a tenner, it worked really well, didn't it, Pos, during the promotion season? They're really sort of cheap, to try and fill the stadium, get everybody singing and behind the team and to try and force us on. But the response has been really different this season. So when we've done the cheap ones against Swansea, Cardiff, which these are midweek games as well, bear in mind, that they've done it. And we've got them against, is it both QPR and Luton because of the Sky stuff? And, people are starting to react more negatively now who are season card holders, sort of saying, well, I've paid season card holders and people are getting the cheaper deal. And there's a lot more murmurings that people are going to pick and choose now. And it just seems really sort of cut your nose off, spite your face kind of an attitude to me, does that. Because these are 4 games this season, this year, that's what, and if it's 4 games out of 23, is that really going to make, that massive saving that you seem to think it is? It's not. It's just, these are really good prices. You've got a chairman who's trying his very best to back, the football club and trying to back, the support and trying to make it as affordable as possible for the supporters, it's a good price. I mean, I don't really see an argument to say that it's poor value. People may say that the entertainment factor might not be for them, and that's fine. And if they can't afford the money, that's also fine. But I think when you compare, like Johnny says, when you compare it to other clubs, Huddersfield Town really stacks up really well. And we did a poll, pause as well. The poll as well on the penalties. I didn't go back to that today, but Jeremy Simpson, people 67.5% say we should have had 2 penalties. 25.4 said 3 or more. 1.6 said no. So I think that must be the whole fan who likes to troll us every now and then. And then 5.6 said 1 penalty. So. But the other one was 73.9% say it's brilliant value, 24.6% say it's okay value, and then 1.4% say it's poor value. I just don't, I know it's a very, very small percentage, but I just don't really see it being poor value. I just can't quite get on board with that, to be honest with you. But there you go.
Hull, I've got a list here, and I'll just pull out a list of to stop myself from going through all 24 to prove it's good value, because I would do that because it annoys me when people say it's not good value because it is. But Hull was 360 quid, and if you couldn't pay me 3,060 quid to sit in that stadium for a full season and watch that football, so. Just think of that whole 360 quid. I think nothing more needs to be said, to be honest.
Yeah, when you look at it like that, it's it is a decent price. It would be interesting to that small percentage who don't think it's good value is to find out exactly what they mean by that. Is it the product of watching this?
I think it's I think it's how they perceive the value in terms of the product that they find on the field. And some people don't like Carlos's football, and that's fine. But I think when you break it down to the very basics of Championship football, whether and you have to remember as well, people, you have to, like I said, where I'm going with this is you have to remember that there is no guarantee that the game that you are going to is going to be good. This is that you pay your money and you take that chance. There is absolutely no guarantee that Huddersfield Town are going to win, turn up, play well. It's it's the choice everybody makes. When you buy your ticket before the game. Sometimes you get rewarded. Mostly you don't. That's Huddersfield Town Football Club, isn't it? But, in terms of value for Championship football, when you break it down to what it is, it's very base level. It's good. It really is good. And, and whisper it quietly, pause. It could also be a Premier League price season ticket. Who knows?
It could, mate. And, obviously that would be, really, really good value for money to get one at 249 or even 299, for Premier League football is ridiculous, really. And just putting that sort of entertainment factor into it, I've paid more than £10 this season to watch non-league football. So, obviously the quality down there is nowhere near.
They live and die by that, though, don't they? The walk-ins.
Of course they do, yeah. But what I'm saying is, if you're going to use it as a marker of what is entertainment, that what else, in football in terms, what do you deceive it? What do you decipher as being that? And I'm trying to think of other things that I could do for £10 on a Saturday afternoon.
Cinemas expensive these days. You used to be able to go. Cinemas were quite cheap, but that's probably more.
I think the idea is, with stuff like that, Matt, you kind of, as you just said, you maybe know that it's going to be a good film because you've heard about it.
Yeah, you can look at IMDb and there's a rating, Rotten Tomatoes, etc. Yeah. But
I think what fans are like, though. They'll always find something to moan about. But hopefully, one thing that nobody could moan about is the
Jerry's connection.
Well, I think everybody can moan about that, especially Jerry. But he's disappeared off everybody, just so you know. His picture's still there, so he's still with us in picture format. But yeah, he's fortunately having some connection issues, so he's not been able to join us tonight. But yeah, I was going to say one thing that fans or anybody really couldn't moan about is the new inclusion room down at at John Smith Stadium. So just something that I wanted to give a shout out really to the team that's put that together down there. It's part of the new Terriers Together sort of thing that they've got running down there. So what they've done is they've knocked two adjoining hospitality boxes together and created a really nice space there for supporters who have additional or any specific needs. And the supporter services down there, Robin and Rachel, who've kind of front up that team, have done an absolutely fantastic job to get that set up. It's been put together, just reading from the article, to create a safe and controlled environment for people with a wide range of different needs to be able to enjoy a match. And certainly for some who may not have been able to get down there to experience football in other areas of the stadium, I think it's an absolutely fantastic thing that they've done there. And obviously taking the financial hit of not being able to use those hospitality boxes. But if it gets fans in that may not have been able to come before, I think it's an absolutely brilliant forward-thinking idea. There's been some comments on there where, kids have gone down there who were, maybe anxious, suffering from sort of anxiety and that sort of thing, and they've sort of started out in the room, and then as the game's gone on, they've grown more and more confident, and eventually made their way out into the stands and stuff like that. So I think that is one thing that Huddersfield Town continually do well off the field. The terrier, the foundation and things like this. It is one of the things that makes me sort of really proud to be a Town fan, and just wanted to give a shout out for the people that have put that together. Anybody listening who may need that room, then get onto the website, and all the information's on there on how to use it.
I think that ties in well, doesn't it, with the new Terriers together strategy as well. That they've only just really announced that today, so probably not a chance to really sort of digest a lot of that, pause. But just one of the statements on there says it's a public declaration of our commitment to maintaining and continuously developing a culture and community that are fully inclusive, resulting in our staff, supporters, and other stakeholder groups reflecting and celebrating the diversity of our local communities, which is really cool as well. And at the end, it says, there's a thing with Dean Hoyle which says Huddersfield Town is for everyone, no exceptions. And I think that's really, really good sort of statement as well. So, well done to the club. They get a lot of things right off of the pitch. And that's, when I've said this before, but when we interviewed Dean Hoyle, he always said he can't control what goes on the pitch, but off of the pitch, he can control the variables. And, they do that very well, don't they? So, well done to everybody at Support Services.
Yeah, brilliant. I think obviously Huddersfield has a very wide range of people, and getting as many people down from different backgrounds and everything like that. There's often calls, and without going off too much on a tangent or a bit of a rant here, there's so many people that see campaigns such as Kick It Out and Football versus Homophobia. There's the Rainbow Laces. There's a new Her Game 2 movement, and people kind of call these things out as if to say, well, we don't need this. Football is, it's all inclusive. I've never heard X, Y, and Z being shouted at a football match. And if that were the case, these sort of campaigns wouldn't be needed, would they? Let's be honest, going to watch football is going to watch football, whatever sort of sexual orientation you are, creed, colour, religion. It should not matter when you're in that stand. You are Huddersfield Town, and that is kind of above everything else, or it should be.
Yeah, or even if they're not, it shouldn't matter. You know what I mean?
No, you're quite right, Matt. Shouting stuff like that away fans either, but do you know what I mean? It's like certainly within your own fans, you should be together as one, and everybody comes together to support Huddersfield Town for us. So yeah, hats off massively to the club for putting something like that together, and I think it is something that we can all be proud of and
definitely
get behind.
100%.
Brilliant. So the final thing that I have to discuss, obviously, it looks like we've been on roughly sort of about an hour now, so we'll maybe keep this as quick as we can. Is that the finance report came out for the 2021, the 2020-2021 season, have been published on Company's House. So Stephen Chicken did a really good article on that on the Examiner. So all my information was just basically pinched from that. So thank you, Stephen, for putting that together.
It's worth pointing out that Stephen was an accountant before he got the job at the Examiner, and so he does know his stuff when it comes to this. So he's very much worth reading about, worth reading his stuff on that. 100%.
Yeah, put a link on his Twitter. So if you don't follow him, just give him a search and get him followed, and you'll be able to find it through there. So obviously with accounts, they're all kind of like backdated. So Towns are 1st of July to 30th of June every year. Looking at the sort of the headline figures, the club have posted a profit of 2.6 million over the recent financial year, which, due to factors that I'm sure we're all aware of, COVID and everything like that, is probably quite incredible, really. It will include a little bit of the COVID season and stuff like that. So I'd imagine maybe next season's might not look as healthy, but obviously a lot of the revenues sort of fell across the board. The matchday revenue fell. for obvious reasons. TV and league revenues fell 4 million. Obviously, that included parachute payments. Commercial revenues fell. Communication revenues actually rose from 115,000 up to nearly 500,000. Presumably, I follow passes and sales and matches on there. Retail revenues dropped from 1 million to 0.6. Lottery revenues fell. Catering revenues fell as well. So a lot of money dropping, but still being able to post a profit is decent for the club. I think we've got loans of around about 27 million, which have come down by 12.6. Now, a lot of the loans, as I understand it, that are still on the accounts were actually to Dean Hoyle. Now, we've obviously had a change in circumstances in regards to chairmanship and file probably doesn't matter as much as what it might have done. Which, and I'm going to throw this out to you guys, Matt and Johnny, I think puts us in a really good position moving forward now that Hoyle's come back. There's a lot to be said about Dean Hoyle, about what happened when he was with the club, about how the takeover happened, how it went
skip past that bit.
Phil and then back to Dean. But I think that's not going to be discussed in this next sort of 5-10 minutes. But looking forward from this point on, pushing all that aside, how do you guys see the financial situation at Town and Hoyle being back in the hot seat? Are you bothered? I know some fans don't really care about any of this sort of stuff. Some fans love it. Some are a bit indifferent either way. How do you guys sort of look at finances and how do you think it'll affect us moving forward?
Well, it's last year as well, isn't it? It's 2020, 21, so it's not this season. So that's interestingly. And Town have turned a 2.6 million profit, mainly thanks to the second year of parachute payments, really, isn't it? And not actually paying Dean anything back in that year, which is interesting. Dean, remember, he postponed, didn't he, or stretched out the payment length, and that's going to be interesting to see what he does with that now he's back in charge. I presume, and this is just a presumption, nothing based on fact, that he will park that maybe whilst he's back doing his thing, if you like. So that's going to be really interesting to see, how that develops. 2.6 million profit sounds good on paper. Probably doesn't mean an awful lot if you've got 30 odd million debt, if you like. And these things come out now. I read Kieran Maguire's tweets, and accountants are hired to make things look a certain way a lot of the time, aren't they? And so I don't really know if you get a full true picture sometimes from the club accounts of how everything is. So. But you can only take it at face value, pause, and to be honest, it looks quite good, doesn't it? The revenue is down by 23%, but that's due to the reduction in TV money. So that's those players are out now as of the summer, so they're been and gone. So again, I think led to believe that the wages for this season are around about 12 million or something like that. So they've done really well to get that down. And get Town down to a decent level. Operating loss of 5 million. I think that's the COVID thing, really, isn't it? Player purchases 2 million, sales 21 million, borrowings 44, which I presume is the Hoyle thing again, isn't it? So, so I think they're quite good actually. In compared to what they could have been, or the picture. I think everybody remembers Mark Devlin and Phil sort of going on TalkSport and TV, and I think they were quite unfairly at times cast as, sort of Oliver Twist, with the cap out, if you like, please sir, we're skint, we need money, sort of thing. But, Phil sort of said they're doing it for the betterment of football across the board, but they didn't really wash, did it, with a lot of Town fans? They didn't really buy that. They were cast, it fed into the whole potless thing, didn't it? Which was going around at the time, which I thought was personally unfair. But, so to come away from that period with a 2.6 million profit actually looks really good, doesn't it? But we've not actually paid any debt in that time. So, there's two ways to look at that. We're probably behind schedule where we thought we would be when we sold the club, or not when we sold the club, but when Dean sold the club to Phil. But there's a worldwide pandemic which has come in the middle, isn't there? And caused that to kick up a royal fuss. Am I pleased that Dean Hoyle's back? I'm pleased Dean Hoyle's back if Dean Hoyle wants to be back. He's not really done a lot of public facing stuff yet. I think Dean likes to sort of control the scenario, doesn't he? So I think Dean likes it, face to face. He's quite old fashioned, isn't he? He likes the face to face. If you've got something to say, come say it to my face, and I quite like that. I respect that. So he's quite, and he's feisty. He'll have it out with you. I love that from our from a chairman. It's good. He's not going to take any nonsense, and he's not going to give you any. It's it's proper Yorkshire chairman, isn't he? So yeah, I'm looking forward to everyone being able to do that again. Going back to a venue, with sit there and Dean being able to just tell us his plans, because I think that's interesting for me. Is what does Dean Hoyle want to do with the football club? Is he selling it? Is he keeping it? Is he bringing an investor on? Is he selling bits of it? Is he selling stakes? Stakes is in the club, not what we had for T-Pos. But it's like so I think there's a lot of questions about what Dean's going to do with the football club, and if Dean is wanting to progress this football club like he has done in the previous 10 years, and he wants to move us forward and bring people in that to do that, then I'm 100% all for it. Yeah, great. So if Dean's having to step in and doesn't really want to be here because of the situation with Phil, then that's not ideal. But at least you've got someone here who he's a Huddersfield Town fan, cares about the football club, and and we'll see. We'll in my opinion do no harm to it. So and people like that are quite rare in football. So it could be even if he doesn't want to be here, it could be a hell of a lot worse. So I think we're in a pretty good position with Dean Hoyle as chairman of the football club, and if Dean wants to be here, I'll always want him to be here. So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, just to come in, just to circle quickly back to the accounts. First things first, because like you said, that how accounts are published. By the time we see them, it's effectively pointless anyway. Because if there were any major issues with them, the club will be gone. The fact the club is here now means that the accounts obviously weren't that bad. Few things for me that stand out. Obviously, yeah, there's a profit there, but that profit was also backed up by £21 million of player sales. You could argue we've still got £20 million worth of assets because of how they performed this season, but not every year the club will be able to make £21 million in sales. So that's something where, again, is that sustainable year on year? Probably not. The other thing that stood out for me was the cash balance went significantly down. I've not got it written down. I think it went something around 12 million down to 1 point something million. So that shows the club's had to use its cash reserves to fund itself, which is fine. As long as we've got an owner who can do that once that drips to zero. If it's lost kind of £9-10 million in a year, you can't use cash. That's a minus figure. So I feel more comfort that Dean's obviously in there now than Phil, because obviously we don't know, but someone needs to pull it in. So those two things that do stand out, which for me would kind of ring alarm bells if we can sustain that year on year. But like I say, the fact that the club still exists, it was alluded to the fact it might not have existed a few weeks ago without Dean stepping in. There's a couple of things there which show that might have been the case. Few things that are going down, which are cause for concern. So like I said, because the club still exists today and the accounts are sort of historic as the accounts are, people can get excited about them, but ultimately how much you believe in them with a pinch of salt, you don't know, because accounts can be interpreted and created in different ways by accountants. Ultimately, they're so old that it's next to irrelevant, really. But there are good things. I mean, the fact that the debt is now mainly down to the owner rather than banks, rather than external kind of finances. That's a good thing. The fact the wage bill is significantly down, that's a good thing. This year we know it's down even more, but performances have gone up. So ultimately, I think there are a lot of positives there. And on the Dean Hoyle case, again, like similar to Matt, do you know what I mean? What better owner can you get on paper than a rich fan? Because ultimately, he's someone who can back the club financially, but has got the best interests at heart, and ability to make business decisions. Everyone's going to like decisions that any owner makes of a football club, but you probably get more people like decisions that a fan makes, and you ultimately put trust in someone who's got the same interests, the same passions at heart. And we know Dean has. I know people might necessarily disagree with that. Not everyone's gonna be happy, but ultimately it's a safe pair of hands. The club won't go backwards. I think that's a great point. The club will stay safe. It'll progress. whether his long-term plan is to move it on, which is well within his right to do, to bring somebody in. He obviously wouldn't do that, but whether he might do that, whether he's kind of reinvigorated and wants to kind of go again, to use a football phrase, we'll see. But I do think when the season ends, we will get Dean, because one thing he does do is he does talk to fans. He tells how it is, good and bad. But it'll be interesting to see. Like I say, I think hopefully, whether it's via this podcast or in a cinema, we might get something where we get to understand and ask the questions and get the answers, and then we all know where we are. But I think out of what could have happened and where the club could have gone and the hands it could have fallen into, I think Dean Hoyle's are probably the best hands we could hope for at this particular point in time.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with those views there, guys. Obviously, with Hoyle being with us sort of through the Premier League years, and then obviously going through the transfer over to Phil, and then coming back in, he will have such a massive experience of dealing with the football club at these levels and these sorts of money. It's interesting, Johnny, that you mentioned the £21 million in player sales. I noticed that Kieran Maguire did a little thread on Town, and for 21 million sales, we actually paid out 71 million for those players. So yeah, as you said, accounts for that particular period look good, but actually that's a minus 50 million in real terms, isn't it? So the Hoyle going through the things that he went through previously should put us in good stead if he sort of continues to move forward with the club. So yeah, every success to Hoyle. I think Matt is right. From what I can gather, he is wanting to be at the club. He has, quote, got his mojo back, and I think there were talks of him doing a bit of an open forum Q&A, which will be really interesting should that go ahead. So it will be interesting to see what comes out of that. So we'll keep everybody posted if we hear out when that might be, and maybe try to get ourselves down and get some questions asked. And
I put some stuff out on Twitter as well. Pause before we wrap it up. There's quite a few questions that have come through on Twitter. We can maybe rattle through quickly once you've finished that. Sorry, I thought you were going to finish it then, so I thought I'd better get that in quickly.
No, mate. Doggy's looking at me as if to say, "Why can't I go to bed yet?" But yeah, you let's whiz through a few, mate.
Dan Stevanato says, I'd like to hear the thoughts of the one person who voted for the one penalty. Can only assume it was a misclick. I think everyone can do that. Danny Bell says, I presume you're bringing back Whopper of the Week for this week's pod. If he said he feels a Matt rant coming on. Did I rant? I think I was a bit angrier than I thought I would be, actually, when Jeremy Simpson's name came up. I thought I'd relaxed a bit since Friday, especially with the 4 wins we've had with him this year. But I don't know. I don't know if you guys can hear this if I press these buttons on the...
We've lost to a pub side. We've literally lost to a pub side.
Absolute danger, this fella.
Does that come through at all, with you guys?
Yeah.
Does that come through? Oh, there we go. So, yeah, we can have Jeremy Simpson's Whopper of the Week. It's been a while. It doesn't really have the same... Like, Neil's delivery was absolutely sublime with it, wasn't it? He had that sort of booming voice, which made Whopper of the Week really what it was. I don't think my croaky Mrs. Doubtfire's brother voice can really sort of help, can it, at this minute? So hopefully that's the last we see of him this season. Thanks for the 9 points and the cup win, Jez, but hopefully won't see you next season. And then someone's actually said, take Jeremy Simpson's wife's names out of your mouth, which made me laugh. So we've had a couple of tweets from a chap which I think he played centre back for Coventry in the 1990s, Johnny, by the name of Paul Gillespie. I don't know if he's a relation of yours. Yes, no, maybe your dad, possibly.
Possibly.
He's put after the whole match.
Let's see what he says first before
Holmes versus Sinani, because I'm in a WhatsApp group with Stephen, Chicken, and Dave, and Dwayne Holmes came up. I like Dwayne as a player, as a bloke. I think he's good. But I thought he had a poor game against Hull. I just didn't think anything really worked for him. So I didn't really think Dwayne had a good game, and he was probably rightly to be subbed. But I wouldn't hold that against him moving forward. But Stephen and Dave thought he did all right. So everyone's got an opinion, which is fine. But yeah, so Holmes versus Sinani, it's a good question, that, because Sinani and Holmes are quite similar, aren't they, in that they kind of both evaporate into... They're both really hard working, aren't they? But sort of in attack, they can kind of have moments of... I'm trying not to be really mean, because they both had really good seasons, but they can be ineffectual at points. And, they're both probably limited in what they do at certain points going forward, but they've both been really great for us this year and really key players. But it's a tough one to choose, really, between Holmes and Sinani. I think Thomas is doing his best work on the right, isn't he? So, which would mean Sinani moves onto the left, and he's not really got the pace to go outside, whereas Holmes kind of folds in, doesn't he, into that sort of half space really well and does a lot of good things from that sort of area. Thomas can do that as well, so I don't know. I couldn't really split Holmes or Sinani. I don't know. You two, would you pick one or the other?
I think they're a bit different. I think it's hard to split. I think Sinani's more of a ball player. Holmes is just. I mean, he's a hard worker. He's probably a pest. I think I'd rather play against Sinani than Holmes. I don't really answer the question as. I think a full firing Holmes isn't, but I like both. Like I said, you almost don't want to be negative because. Like
third in the league, aren't we? You can't really start.
Have a good season, so.
Yeah, you can't slate. We're third in the league. You can't start slating people. It's just it'd be ridiculous, really. Pause. Where were you going for? I know you're a big Dwayne Holmes fan.
Yeah, I don't say it too loud. No, I think they're probably both the sort of players that for 75 minutes would just sort of be passengers, but they play well for 25 minutes. They'll do something. So. Is it, Town fans have that thing, don't they, where someone's got to be playing well for every single minute of every single game, and if they're not, then they need dumping out a team and sort of never playing again. And you're never going to get that from someone like Sinani or Holmes, I don't think. They'll come into games, they'll drift out of games. I prefer Sinani just because I think he just gives you that little bit more physicality. I think Holmes sometimes looks a little bit lightweight, obviously with his size and stuff. But yeah, you're looking for negatives rather than they're just being blatantly obvious. Like you just say, we're third in league, we've had a great season. Let's not look for things that we don't really need to. This stage, every single player's got a part to play, and there's a lot of games coming up in short space of time. So I think whoever you play, Sinani or Holmes, they kind of offer you the same sort of thing. So it's kind of whoever's performing best in training, whoever gets a little bit of a run of form, and that's up to Carlos to decide, and that's why he gets paid, and that's why he sits in a dugout and not me.
It's good to have those options, if nothing else, isn't it?
Yeah, and one of the options.
It's good to have two. Do you know what I mean?
One of the other options your dad's mentioned as well is Josh Koroma. He says, is he trying too hard? And Josh Koroma's a sort of puzzle that nobody can really work out this year, and the only thing I can think of really is the contract situation maybe playing on his mind a little bit, because Paul said, is he trying too hard? And I think there are points where he probably does try a bit too hard. He looks to cut inside and shoot, because he was phenomenal at that last year, wasn't he? Let's be honest. And there are a lot of times where he does look to cut inside and get the shot off, and he's becoming a bit too predictable. That's really what the problem's been with him this year is predictability. He works hard and does a lot of good stuff, but every time he's trying to shift it and shoot. And we saw against Blackpool, when he gets it right, he's absolutely brilliant at it. But he's got to vary his game a little bit more, and that's why he's probably not played as much as others. And whether that's because he's trying too hard because he's got this contract situation looming over him, I don't know. We can only sort of guess, can't we? But I'll always have a lot of belief in Josh Koroma. I don't think last year was a fluke. I'm reaching for the conch. You know what I'm doing, don't you? So, I think he's a really good player, Josh Koroma. I just think, Harry Toffolo's probably not had quite as good a year as last year. I think he's been good. I think some people have underrated him a lot this year, Harry Toffolo. I think he's been really solid. And I think he's a better left back than he is a wing back. That sort of second run he makes as a left back is really good. And as a wing back, you're making that first run, aren't you? And you're the first sort of player that the opposing fullback or wing back sees. Whereas, as a secondary decoy runner, if you like, he's very good at that. So, now he's back at left back. I think we've seen a better player, and I don't know if it's the same thing with him. His contract situations, over his head as well. But as we keep saying all the time, that let's get this signed, Harry, and let's keep him here for another 3 years or so, and we'll all be happy. Otherwise,
I think he'll sign it. He knows what he's doing, Matt. He's going to sign it out.
Yeah, I think quite a few of them are waiting to see what division we're in at the end of the year, aren't they? I think that's the thing, isn't it? If we go up, Harry Toffolo and Josh Koroma probably think they'll get more money next year, whereas or their agents will. Whereas I think we're just waiting to see how that plays out. But I do think it maybe does play on their mind a little bit. It can maybe have an unsettling effect. But is Josh Koroma trying too hard? I think maybe he is a little bit. And once whatever it is causing that, and he relaxes, hopefully we'll see the Josh Koroma we saw last year. Because I think that left wing area is probably our weakest position, would you say? And Tino was brought in, and Tino's injured on England international duty, isn't he? That's a frustrating one as well, isn't it, with Tino injuring, because we thought he was going to be the sort of the gloss on it on the season, didn't we? When he signed in January, we thought he would come back by now and he'd be the one who'd be ransacking up his opposing defences, but he's not really had the chance yet. But there's still 6 games to go, potentially 3 after that. So hopefully we see Tino work his way in. But in the WhatsApp groups I have with Dave and Stephen, one of them said maybe we just do the right thing by Tino this year, get him fit and show how good we are at treating Chelsea loan players, and maybe they'll let us have him next year. So who knows? So we'll see what happens there. So but I think in terms of things coming through, I think we've covered everything else which has come through. So I think that's potentially it, Posman.
Yeah, certainly not else from me, Johnny. I hope that you've got a burning desire to get off your chest Huddersfield Town related.
No, just like what Matt says, I think keeping a club like Chelsea happy and doing them a favour with no real output in Tino only stands us in good stead to get players like him and call with future. So I don't see a problem with it if he doesn't play. Unfortunate, but I think a future loanees, it'll only help us. So no problem with that.
Definitely, yeah, it's an interesting point. There's no point of us playing him and then him going back injured, because as you say, it could. Not only Chelsea, but other teams look at that and say, well, we don't want our player going there because they're potentially going to ruin him. So, maybe one just to put down to a bit of bad luck with, he came injured, didn't he? He's been away with England and got injured as well. So,
alternatively, we're just trying to do everything like 2017, the finals on the 29th. We needed 2 Chelsea loanees, one who's coming back fit. So everything's just following perfectly. It's to the script. So. It might be for that reason.
Yeah, if he comes on at Wembley, like midway through the second half, I think it was. Then we're definitely getting promoted, aren't we?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, no, guys, I think, as Matt says, that's probably everything for tonight. So, thank you to Matt and Johnny for joining me, and also Jerry for trying on many, many occasions. You guys offline won't be able to see how hard you were trying to join us, but hopefully we can get Jerry some internet shipped over to America, and he can make another appearance in the future.
Land of the free, but not land of the Wi-Fi. I think that's the Americans.
Thank you to Matt and Johnny for joining us, and also thank you to Magic Rock for sponsoring us. Matt's pointed out that I got the discount code wrong, which is probably why discount's not being applied to any of my orders that I've done. It's actually AHTCC10 for 10% off when ordering from
TTC.
That's what I said, isn't it?
No, you said TCC.
Did I write TCC10?
That's the one.
I'm sacked from any further announcements for the sponsorship. But the more we talk about it, the more people will know that's one. Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much, guys, and thank you for everybody who's joined us online. And pod will be out in the usual places as soon as possible. Thank you.
Often you can hear them say, who can be the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every ghost shall be a memory. So town, play up and bring that car back to Huddersfield. So town, play up, bring the car back